Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And
oh my gosh, you know the listeners are so excited right now because they saw who's on the show.
Oh yeah, this is we're in the zeitgeist now, Youngmi.
Wow, we're doing things. We're topical. Oh, I was gonna say, like, I know we've had some huge guests on this, but I feel like this is how I feel like I know I've made it.
Oh, likewise. Youngmi, we've fully made it. We're part of the conversation now, officially.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I'm used to hearing about things 3 weeks too late or 3 years too late, but we're in the thick of it right now.
But yeah, we are very, very excited to have our guest this week. We're honored that she could join us because I'm sure she's very, very busy. But I guess without further ado, Brian, will you introduce our wonderful guest this week?
It would be an absolute honor, and it's an immense privilege. Listeners, give your ears to... She is a contestant on the newest season of Love is Blind, Season 2. Catch it on Netflix. But without further ado, everyone give it up for Natalie Lee.
Woo! I'm here in the house. I'm so excited to be part of this conversation, by the way. But thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh my gosh,
wow, Natalie.
I'm so excited. I'm such a big fan of the show, and I'm sure everyone who's listening is. And I have so many things to ask you because I feel like there were so many things that weren't covered on the show. Brian is trying to hide his excitement. He's like, yeah, I'm a cool guy. I don't watch Love is Blind. What? But I know he's dying.
No, I fully watch it. No shame.
Too funny.
But yeah, Natalie, thanks for joining us. And, let's get into before we get into the juicy stuff and learn a little bit more about you and your experience on the show. Youngmi, how are you feeling?
How am I feeling? I feel like this is the thing. I'm going to bring up the pandemic again. Is everyone ready to hear more about the pandemic? Yeah. But this is the interesting thing is, like, I feel like every day it takes me a while to sort of like really realize how much it's changed my life. But I haven't talked about this on the podcast, but since the pandemic, my life has completely switched over to just working from home. Like before, it would just involve, doing stuff outside and like doing comedy outside. But now everything that I do basically is from home. And I feel like I just like started really realizing that, like, maybe this month, because I started getting a lot more work, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm a work from home person. That's like a huge, it's like I've never had like a job where I had to like sit and be at a computer for most of the day. And that totally happened for me.
So are you in the beginning pandemic feeling of where it was like kind of fun and exciting to be working from home, or are you completely over it at this point?
No, I'm a fucking weirdo now. Like, I'm like, now if I go out, like if I have to go out to get like paper towels, I'm like, like, I don't know how to act. And I'm like, oh, was this everyone that like worked from home? But like, cause like people did that before the pandemic, right?
Oh yeah.
No wonder
100%. Everyone's
so weird at Trader Joe's. I'm just like, where's the bread? Like, I don't know. Like, it really affects me because I'm just alone staring at a screen for so many hours a day.
Extremely good for all of our mental healths.
Yeah, that's why all of us are just, everyone has crippling anxiety now because like that's what life was for the last 10 years for everyone else, I guess.
Basically.
Yeah, so I guess I'm feeling like a hermit, and every time I go outside now, I'm like, air, like it's so weird. Yeah, but that's just how I'm feeling. How are you feeling, Brian?
Not my mine is also kind of work related. I'm very excited in this current moment because I was looking forward to this interview, but overall I've been feeling a little bit bleh. I'm in a procrastination anxiety spiral because I have this big deadline coming up, but then I avoid the work, and then that then leads to berating myself for not doing the work. And then and it's just an endless cycle, because rather than just do the work, I don't know, I'm just like procrastinating a lot, and I feel kind of yucky because of it. But you would think that after being on this earth for 31 years now that I would be better about it, but I guess some habits just never go away. So yeah, in this current moment, I'm just feeling kind of like, all right, I'm putting off a lot of work here. I'm feeling kind of bleh about it, but you know what? We're in the safety. That. Right. I'm just going to keep doing that and not improve. And, coincidentally, for good things, the procrastination spiral is being exacerbated due to reality TV shows like Love is Blind.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm losing so much sleep and stuff too. In a good way. Right.
But yeah, that pretty much sums up how I'm feeling, just normal work life things and procrastination anxiety spirals. But enough about us. Natalie, how are you feeling?
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like I could relate with both of you. I've definitely been a hermit from, all this working from home. Like there was one point in January I didn't leave my apartment for 2 weeks. And I was just, and I stepped outside. I was like, wow, this is what air feels like fresh air.
Right.
And I definitely feel like I've been in a procrastination spiral as well, and losing some sleep just watching the show I was on called Love is Blind. But yeah, I did watch it. I watched it at the same time as everyone else. And it was a very interesting experience seeing myself on TV. I don't know. I felt a lot of different ways about it, but I would say overall, definitely feeling a bit overwhelmed. I mean, it transitioning from, normal life, I would say, to all of this. It's definitely been overwhelming. I'm so grateful for it because I've never felt so loved and supported, but also, there's so much public attention, on the cast, and people want to know what's going on in our lives. So it's just a lot, but I'm trying to take it day by day.
Yeah. Well, I was, that's one of the first questions we wanted to ask you, because so this is the thing. I was talking to Brian and he was like, oh, Love is Blind season 1 was a huge show. So, obviously when you got cast on season 2, you probably anticipated this. But I feel like season 2 has just been so much bigger than season 1, in terms of people watching it. Did you, how has that all been for you?
Yeah, in terms of viewership, I'm not sure, how many people have seen season 2 so far. I think it just feels big for me right now because it's my world, right? I was on the show, and so the attention is on me. We anticipated that, there was going to be attention. I mean, just knowing the popularity of season 1, but we were not prepared for this. I'll just say it right now. We were not prepared for just the social media attention and just people stopping us on the streets and being like, how are you? We feel like we know you, things like that. We couldn't have ever imagined this.
Wow. I mean, I'm curious, after you filmed, obviously there's a transition period because they have to go into post-production and whatnot. Did you go back to your regular job as a consulting manager?
Yes. Yeah. So I actually worked during filming. So when we, so after we left the pods and left Mexico and came back to Chicago, I was working during that time in Chicago. Yeah.
Kudos. Because I absolutely would do zero work if I were you. Just knowing that I was filming, be like, fuck this. I don't need this shit anymore. I'm going to be a star, baby.
I mean, I didn't have a choice. I had to make money. I was like, how am I going to live without money? And I will say it was pretty hard to balance filming, building this relationship, making the decision to be, married or not, and also working. There's so much going on in my mind, but when you're forced in this situation, you just kind of have to take it for what it is and just move forward.
I mean, it's because it's it's a show, obviously a TV show, and people know you, and you have this this fame, but also the aspect that it is part of your personal life too, and it involves you being in a relationship, and that whole section of your life is filled up now, and like that just like seems so intense.
Yeah, it's definitely intense. Just people having that insight into, you know, that relationship I had on the show and after the show as well, and just like my very vulnerable moments, you know, that's it's hard for me watching the show as a viewer and kind of seeing, you know, the ups and downs I went through. So just knowing like millions of other people are also watching that, it's, you know, definitely tough.
Well, I feel like everyone's on your side because you came across, I think the reason I think people like really love you on the show so much is that you're just so authentic, you know? It's like whatever it is that you're doing, it's like, I'm like, that's real. And it's like, I was like very moved by that, I think.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I think it's really hard not to be authentic when you are... well, I guess it really depends on the person and like the intentions and motivations, but you know, for me, that relationship with Shane was real. Like I really thought I was going to marry him up until the end. And so like you can't be anything but authentic when you are in a real relationship trying to really figure it out. Yes, the camera aspects in the TV show piece is there, but you know, I think when it's really real, you know, it's hard not to, you know, not to be authentic during that whole experience.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And, you know, for our listeners, our few listeners who may not be privy or aware of the show, Love is Blind is a show with the premise of falling in love with a stranger without knowing anything about their physical appearance. And that kind of leads us to our, you know, this next question is, how was race addressed on the show? Since, you know, it reveals so much about physical appearance, but also means so much in terms of identity. And yeah, what was your experience with all of that on the show?
Yeah, so everyone took a different approach. For me, I actually kept my ethnicity and race from the men on the other side during the early stages of dating in the pods. You know, the Korean culture is so important to me. I'm the daughter of immigrants, and I grew up in that culture. Like, it's a central part of who I am. However, I didn't want to be like reduced to stereotypes. You know, I've had experiences of that happening to me in the past, in the conventional dating world. And so I was like, you know, this is kind of my chance in this very unique experiment. And I don't want that to happen. So when I did talk about my background, I didn't mention my race or ethnicity. So I would mention like, yep, I'm, you know, I'm the daughter of immigrants, but I wouldn't say, you know, Korean immigrants, things like that. I would say I struggled with my identity growing up, like being between two cultures and trying to find balance. Or how I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood and like really struggling with that as a non-white person. So we did talk about that, but when it came to my ethnicity and race, I didn't reveal that until Shane and I decided we wanted to be engaged with each other. So Shane was my fiance on the show.
Right.
Oh, and then after the engagement, you told him you were Korean?
Yeah, so I told him before he proposed, but once we decided we wanted to be engaged to one another, like we really want to take that next step, is when I told him my full name, and he, based on my last name, when I said my name was Natalie Lee, he made the assumption I was East Asian, and so that's when we started talking about how I was Korean, and you know, what I loved about my culture and how it really was for me growing up.
Right. Well, I was like wanting to ask you that so much because I think it's like for you, it was like another level of like this experiment that maybe if you weren't white, it wouldn't be true. Because, you know, like obviously there's another Asian woman on the show, Deepti, but because of her name, you know, it sort of gave it away. Like even when she matched with Sheikh, he immediately knew that she was Indian based on her name. And it was a little different of an experience. I have so many things to ask you about this. It's like, I don't even know where to start. I think I just want to point out you saying that, mentioning that you were children of immigrants and like that you struggled with living in like an all white, community, like those are so interesting because we have a lot of Asian people on. Obviously, it's mostly only Asian people on this podcast, and we talk a lot about how we relate to other people who are not Asians because their parents are immigrants, and it's like that's a completely different like bonding, you know, thing that people have. Oh my god, I have so many things that I want to know. It's so interesting.
Yeah, and I wish they showed more of that bond that we made with the other cast members. So, for example, Sal on the show, I think he's the son of 2 Mexican immigrants. And so, you know, I think that's why a lot of us got along so well because we could relate to one another. So I'm very, very close with Ayana, who is Black and Mexican, and Mallory as well, and Deep D, who is actually... born in India. So like that we definitely had that bond because we understand, I guess the struggle of growing up in different cultures. You know, you've got the American culture, but you've also got your, you know, for me, the Korean culture. That's a huge part of who I am.
When you told Shane that you were Korean, was he like surprised or like what was his reaction if he had any?
Yeah, he was like, oh, I would have never guessed that. I didn't know you were Korean. So he didn't know leading up to that conversation, but it really didn't faze him. He really embraced my culture. So my parents would drop off food a lot in Chicago, and, you know, they would bring like jjajangmyeon, which is the black bean noodles. And he like loved that. He started listening to K-pop. So I introduced him to like Blackpink and BTS. So he was all about
Blackpink
it.
is my favorite. Yeah,
I know, me too. So he and Mamamoo, I like love them, and I play their songs all the time when I'm in the shower. And so he really embraced that. So I don't think it was like an issue for him at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, just, you know, on a larger level here, you addressed this on the first episode about how, you know, dating as an Asian woman is it's a different experience because of the expectations that people might unfairly place on like Asian women, such as yourself, that are based on harmful stereotypes. And do you think your experiences dating, like in conventional dating leading up to this show, was that more of an impetus for you to even throw your hat into the ring and try this experiment out?
Yeah, for sure. So before I applied to the show, I went on a series of bad dates where I felt like the men that I was meeting were like reducing me to these stereotypes. Like, for example, I remember I went on a date and, you know, this particular man, he was like, you know, you seem so smart. It's probably because you're Asian. And it's like, really? No, I'm not smart. I didn't do well in school or in my career because I'm Asian. It's because I work hard and care about, you know, learning and making myself a better person, and also my career. It's like those types of things. I was just like, I feel like I'm always being stereotyped or like put into a box just because of my ethnicity and race. So that's what really attracted me to this experiment.
Well, Brian and I joke a lot about our experience dating as, you know, East Asians, and like we have this joke where it's like if we're like on Tinder and the person is like standing in front of like what's that gate, Brian, in Japan?
I know exactly
Inari
and know exactly what you're getting to.
The Fushimi Inari gates, the red gates.
if that's their profile picture, I know they're swiping right on me. 100%. It's never failed.
I fully relate, and I fully agree.
Well, that's like, well, okay, so this is also the thing. I think just I don't know why anybody would be listening to this and not be aware of this, but I think the hard part for Asian people and Asian women specifically is that the stereotypes surrounding us seem positive, but they're actually very harmful because they're like racist things wrapped in like this fake compliment bow. Like, oh, you're all so like all the men like you and you're so submissive, and like things like, oh, you're so smart because you're Asian. It's like, no, because I'm a human fucking being and I tried hard. Like, don't, you know, it's like hard to tell people that they are harmful, in my experience.
Yeah. I mean, you hear this a lot, like, oh, you're so cute and petite and submissive, and you're just like, you know exactly what they're getting at. They're stereotyping me, and I really hate that.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is a. I like how you approach this as an experiment but it seems like an extreme form of the experiment where you neutralize that element of.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know what I look like, you can't make any of these preconceptions about who I am based on my Asian American identity. But on the flip side, going through this entire process and falling in love through this experiment, like, did it illuminate anything about yourself and your own approach to dating? Like, did you learn anything about yourself along the way?
Yeah, I learned a lot about myself. I think I learned a lot about what I need and want from a relationship and what my boundaries and limits are. But I think specifically I guess instead of relationships, when it comes to dating, I think I learned I'm a bit judgmental. I definitely judge people based off their physical appearance a lot. Like how do they keep their hair? How groomed are they? Or, what are they wearing? How do they dress? What's their dress style? And I think what I learned from this experiment is, like, that stuff doesn't matter. Right. I know people may disagree with me on this, but I truly don't think it matters. I think as long as you're falling in love with the core of who someone is and you love their values and their principles and those align with yours, I think that's enough. I think, I don't think the physical aspect matters at all.
Wait, so did you, first of all, I was going to say props to Shane that you said I'm Asian. He was like, I don't care. That's a true, a true ally. But like, did you think that Shane was white in your head?
I'm trying to think. I think when I visualized him, I saw him as white, if that made sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, yes, I assumed he was white after probably our like third and fourth date. When he said he was from Wisconsin and he loved beer and cheese and, the Green Bay Packers, in my head I was like, he sounds white.
Oh my God, Natalie. So we have a live comedy show, and the last show that we had a curtain, and we had 3 men standing behind it who all date Asian women, and the audience had to guess which one of them was white. And it was like they had to like ask questions like, where are you from? Like, it'd be like Wisconsin. Like, and the audience couldn't guess. They couldn't guess. They all got it wrong. Remember, Brian?
I know.
Yeah, amazingly.
But we intentionally mixed it up where like the Asian partners that we chose, like one of them owns a record store in Brooklyn. And just as like curveballs.
Yeah. Wait, that's so funny.
That was like our Love is Blind moment. And do you, so in your head, when you visualized Shane and then you saw him in real life, what was it really different, or was it kind of like similar?
It was so different. I actually kept a journal during filming.
Oh my God.
So a private journal. And I actually wrote an entry. I was like, this is what I think he looks like. And it was like brown curly hair, lanky, like yeah. And when reveal day came and those doors opened, I was like, I was completely off. Because he just comes off as a really goofy guy and and just like super silly, and so I never got. I don't want to say he looks like a frat bro, but I know a lot of people have been saying that. But
he's got big himbo energy, in the best way, endearingly. Yeah,
and so I don't know. I just pictured him to look so different, and so it was definitely a surprise. Just seeing him on reveal day, I was like, this is not what I was expecting.
I wish I could. I wish I could hear all the episodes before I saw everybody. Like, I wish like the first episode I just like listened to it so I could try that out, because like that just seems like such an interesting thing to have like an idea of what somebody looks like. Wow.
But just want to take this moment to shout out again to Shane and obviously yourself. But I also think another special shout out to, as you mentioned before, you're a daughter of immigrant parents. Shout out to your parents. Now, in the course of the show,
I love them.
I love them too.
they get roped into the process and they meet Shane. But even preceding this entire show, did you tell them that you were applying for this? How do they react to that? Like, what do they make of all of this? And
I feel
still,
like you didn't tell
day,
them at all. Yeah.
So I told them I was doing a show. I think my dad thought I was doing Survivor because, I was off the grid for 3 weeks. So, they knew, they had to know like where I was going. But yeah, I think my dad thought I was doing some challenge show or Survivor. He did not know it was like a dating and marriage show. I definitely was not going to tell them that. I was like, I feel like they would have never driven me to the airport if I told them.
Oh, really?
So I was like, I'm just going to keep it a secret. And also, I had no expectations going into it. And I was like, I feel like it probably won't work out. So, I probably won't find someone, I'm kind of pessimistic in that way. And so I was like, it's not a really big deal if I, tell them or not. I'll just see when I come back, I'll let them know. But, I came back with a full fiance. And
full white man fiance. A full white man from Wisconsin that likes cheese and beer fiance.
Yeah. Exactly. I was like, hi, Mom and Dad, here's Shane. And my dad was like, oh my gosh. Because Shane's like 6'3", and my dad's shorter than that. So he was like, he's like, who is this? Like, who is this man? So it was definitely a very awkward moment, him meeting my parents. But they were so supportive. So I'm so happy that they were.
Yeah. But how is it? Can I ask you about your friendship with Deepti? Do you hang out with all the other cast members, or who do you see?
Yeah. So the women that I'm the closest to is Ayana. So Ayana, I actually speak to every day. She's one of my best friends.
Oh, that's great.
And we were very So her and I wish they showed more scenes of these friendships that were built during filming. So I'm very close with Ayana, but I'm also very close with Deepti, Danielle, and Mallory. So the five of us talk very often, hang out very often.
Not Shayna. Sorry.
Not Shayna.
Sorry to interrupt you.
She doesn't come around very often. So unfortunately I'm not close with her, but yeah, the five girls, the five ladies, I'm very close to, and I'm so thankful for them. We were actually very, very close during filming, and
wow.
Really just because we went to each other for advice and guidance so often, and I really leaned on them as well as I was trying to like figure out my relationship, and I think they did the same as that. They were trying to figure out, their own relationships with their fiancés at the time.
I saw, this is creepy. I'm so sorry. This is going to creep you out probably. I saw a TikTok where somebody deep dived into all of your Instagram accounts. And they're like, this is everyone's political leanings based on who they follow. And Shayna is like a Trump supporter. And I was like, I knew it. No comment. You don't have to, Natalie, you don't have to say anything. I'm just talking. And that Natalie did not comment. I said that.
What did they say about me? What's my political leaning?
They were like, oh, she's definitely a liberal. She follows Obama. And like you follow like all these like and I was like, yes, I knew it. Yes. And then they went to Shane. Do you want to hear about Shane's? They went to Shane's. Yeah. Nothing. It's just no new. They're like, we don't know. No political. Just a lot of meme pages.
They're like, he follows Barstool Sports, but also The Onion. Well, we can't get a read on this one.
Wait, no. Actually, there's a joke in it, the video where he follows like one singer, but like multiple fan accounts of like one singer. So it's like he just I forgot who it's like Lana Del Rey. He wants Lana Del Rey for president or something.
Oh so my gosh, that is
that's
so
even
funny.
More embarrassing.
I've never looked at who he follows. I feel like that's like an important part to like learning who someone.
Oh, I don't do that either. I'm too scared. Right?
I just never thought of it. But that's now I'm self-conscious about my followers list. I feel like I got to clean that up.
No, it looks good. Somebody already looked through it and put it on TikTok. Oh my God.
It's TikTok approved.
And I creepily watched it. 2 a.m. I was like watching it like, ooh.
Okay, I want to go watch that. You have to send it to me after this. I'm curious.
Okay, I'll try to find it.
Okay. It's so funny.
Now, I don't know if this is if we're allowed to ask this, but let's just go for it. But post Love is Blind, you're in the thick of it. You're promoting the show, but it's done. It's out for the public consumption. What's it like now? What's your relationship status currently? And what's the epilogue here?
Yeah, so I would say I'm focused on myself. I'm dating myself. And you're just going to have to stay tuned in terms of what's happening in my life. But that's really all I can say.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I want to say I watched a reunion. I know Brian hasn't watched a reunion yet, and I was like I was so like impressed by you. I just feel like you're so emotionally solid and mature, and I was like, man, like Natalie is so like emotionally smart. Like that's how you were talking about the relationship, how you were talking about everything. I was just very, very like impressed.
Yeah, thank you. I actually don't remember a lot from the reunion. I think I was so like nervous and just like a bit emotional that everything that happened, it just kind of went all over my head, if that makes sense. It was kind of a blur for me. But watching the reunion for me, that was hard.
Oh man.
Just again watching that conversation and just like seeing the emotions on my face. I did not realize how much I was wearing my emotions on my face and how you could really tell how I was feeling at that moment. Thank you. I feel like I wouldn't describe myself as emotionally mature at all, but it was definitely a tough conversation during the reunion, the one that I had with Shane.
Yeah, that was like probably one of the most watched reunions of recent memory. Everyone was talking about it. There was a lot going on.
Yeah, I feel like there was one reason people were talking about it, and that is because there you go. I feel like I've been seeing just a lot of like memes on him and how he behaved and just things that he said during the reunion show. I think that definitely made it entertaining for sure for most viewers.
Well, there's a lot to talk about there, but we're gonna focus on Natalie. Should we move on to the question portion, Brian?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, Natalie. Well, you gave us a little peek behind the curtain into your experience on Love is Blind, just a crazy experiment overall. So, but granted, your participation in it was fantastic. I just want to echo what Youngmi said in that I really admired your relationship with Shane, in that Youngmi kept saying that it felt very authentic, and as a viewer I felt that as well. And I feel like with reality TV it's very easy for producers to just shoehorn a very glossy, glamorized version of a relationship, and I was really rooting for you and Shane in that. Like, it felt very authentic and real, like most relationships out there, where there are going to be some tension points and there's going to be some disagreements, but it's about putting in the effort together and trying to find like compromises over those obstacles. So, like you said, you wore your emotions on your sleeve for all of us to consume. So I want to thank you for that. But let's jump right into learning a little bit more about you, Natalie Lee, and that is what is something you're loving right now?
Yes, I am loving all the support and love I'm getting from viewers and fans. I don't think people realize how much the messages I receive mean to me, but they really they've been so uplifting, and it's been great just seeing that support.
That's so great. Yeah,
that's
I feel
amazing.
I feel like people like I said earlier, it's just like everyone is just like rooting for you.
I think what I really love is like people can either relate to my story or relate to me, especially other Asian American women, and I think that's really important. You know, and I'm so honored that I'm able to represent, you know, the Asian community in that way.
Yeah, I feel like the dating while Asian, that thing is like, seriously, everyone knows how you feel, you know. Oh, I want to point out, I almost forgot, you know, in the first episode where you actually say that, like you say it to Vanessa, you're like, oh, like all these and then you've said that earlier in the episode, obviously. I thought it was so funny because when you said that, Vanessa was like, yes, because I feel like she's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I was like, yeah, I'm so, like, watching that, I was like, oh my God, thank God Natalie said it. I was like so excited to hear you say that.
Yeah, I'm so glad I said it too, because I feel like, you know, there are Asian American women or Asian women who like feel that the same way. So just want to bring some attention to that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, remember that person on the show who was like, I have so many Instagram followers? What was it? Trisha,
yes.
Yeah. Well, wait, can I ask, how many Instagram followers did you have before the show? Did it like jump like a lot or?
Yeah. So I had, I think 500 followers.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know where I'm at right now. I haven't checked.
Wow. Yay.
So,
That's a flex.
Well,
a flex of having 500 followers?
No, that's like, that means that you're, yeah,
stable and you're a wonderful human being, but it's a flex in that I don't know how many I have anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, it's been so overwhelming that I was like, I can't check my Instagram right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what led as my next question is, you know, it is great. And I love that you've received a lot of messages of support, because I imagine that being in the public spotlight in this way invites all kinds of feedback and discourse. And
yeah.
Have you had to curb your relationship? Like, has your relationship to social media and just being online shifted as a result of all of this?
Yeah, so aside from my Instagram, I stay away from other social media channels, specifically Twitter and Reddit. And I still love Reddit and Twitter, but I don't use it to like, I don't look up like what they're saying about the show or me or other cast members. Just a way to protect my mental health. But you know, it's definitely been tough, just like the attention on social media. And I get a little bit about what people are saying through like my direct messages on Instagram and my comments on Instagram. So it's not like I'm not aware at all, but yeah, I try my best to stay away from certain social media channels.
Yeah, because even when you're somebody that's, I feel like, so universally loved like you are, there's always like some weirdos out there, you know.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm universally loved. You know, I am a like very complex character, so I know that there's gonna be pieces of me that people, you know, don't like, or they do like, whatever. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm me, so their opinions don't matter.
Right.
Sorry,
absolutely. Well, that leads us to our next question, and that is, what is something that you're hating right now?
Oh man, what I'm really hating is the questions about Shayna. I get those all the time. But there aren't any, you know, hard feelings there. And so, you know, I just wanted to make that clear. But I definitely get a lot of questions from her, not only during like interviews, but people on the street. Like they will come up to me and they're like, do you hate Shayna? Like, what do you think of her? And I'm like, you know, things are good. We're cordial. Let's move on.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think, you know, like, I'm sure that those dynamics probably feel very different to you in real life, but then, you know, on a show, they are probably played up a little bit and people that's like the drama.
Yeah. And I totally understand it. I mean, you know, I watched the show like everyone else. So the things that she said and did, that was a surprise to me too. I was not aware to the extent of you know, certain conversations that she had with Shane. So that was definitely tough. But I think for me, it's like, what good is it going to do if I keep anger or put any energy towards that. Like, how's that going to help me grow as a person? It's not going to. So I think it's just like, I want to move on.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. You're so emotionally like solid and mature, because I'd be like, fuck that bitch. I hate her forever.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I just make like a little hair doll and like put needles in it. I'm just kidding. I would not do that.
That's too funny.
Wow. What a wild and surreal experience to watch the show in real time with the rest of
yeah,
the
that's
world.
like, that blew me away. I can't believe you did that. I would be so like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, I mean, are you happy with the way you were portrayed in the show?
Yes, I would say so. I would say how I was portrayed, I think, is me. Obviously, you know, I'm more complex than that, but I think for the most part, I think everyone is portrayed pretty accurately. So you know, I think it's less of like, do I like how I was portrayed? I think it's more so like, yes, I think that was the authentic me on the show.
Right. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I know you get, like you said, you hate the questions that are directed towards these dynamics and relationships from the show, but man, I still can't believe you endured that, because if I had to see anything, namely a reality dating show with myself in it, I'd be like, why am I moving my hand like that?
Okay, yes. I had the same thoughts when I was watching myself. So a lot of people pointed out in my direct messages that I slouch a lot. And so every scene where I continued slouching, I'd be like, what? Stand up straight, Natalie. So it was really tough to watch. I was like, wow, I do slouch a lot. I think it's from working at a desk all day, but yeah.
Right.
So it's like I was just cringing at myself.
Oh gosh. Okay, so when you said you're working on yourself earlier in this episode, you said you're working on keeping those shoulder blades.
Yeah, exactly. I'm working on trying to sit straight up. So that's what I'm working on.
I just caught myself slouching, and I was like, oh God, stop slouching. I wonder if Ryan, what do you think you would see in yourself if you had to see yourself on camera for that many hours? Like, I don't know.
God.
I don't even
want to begin.
I mean, have weird legs or something.
I'm going to go on the record and say, even if I don't see anything in myself, you for sure as hell know that my Korean immigrant parents are going to see it and point it out and tell me that whatever the fuck, I look stupid as hell.
You're Korean,
so
yes.
If I don't catch it, my parents will.
Yeah. My mom called me when the show came out. She's like, you know, you really got to work on that slouch. I've been telling you for years. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, really? That's what you got from watching all those episodes is my slouch? So,
oh my gosh.
You know how those Korean moms are.
I always say that my mom points out something in my body that I never even noticed, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess my collarbones are too close together, Mom. Like, and then I have to like spiral about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
At least in my experience, though, it's incredibly cutting, and it stings, but more often than not, they're correct. So even as we record this podcast, you know, my mom has called me, and she's like, yeah, so you touch the microphone a lot while you're recording, and it comes off as unprofessional, and you're unsure of yourself. And yeah, so from that point forward, I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't really touched the microphone during the recording of this episode. You can thank my mom for that.
I was going to say, you've been touching your microphone a lot, Brian, so I was going to point out that. I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
You seem unsure of yourself. You seem unprofessional.
Sure.
Oh, no. Move on. Let's go to the next question.
All right.
Well, sorry, go on, young me.
Oh, no, you can do it. Sorry.
Well, you know, I think this is a nice transition into our next question, you know, subject talking about Korean mothers. This next question for our listeners, if you want to hear Natalie's response to it, you will have to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. And because this is the juicy stuff. This is the good content that we hide behind our Patreon. But Natalie, what is something you're ashamed of? You know, this is another question that we like to ask all of our guests of this podcast, and that is, what is something that you're proud of?
Oh my gosh. I'm so proud that I chose myself at the end of the day. I know it took me longer to get to that decision, but I'm so proud that I chose myself. I think that was really hard for me to do, just especially on my wedding day, and just ending that relationship with Shane as well. Of just knowing I was going to disappoint people. I'm just glad that I put myself first in that moment.
Gosh, that's good. It's gutsy for sure, because for our listeners who haven't seen, or who might not have a Netflix subscription or are privy to it, you chose yourself on your wedding day.
Yeah. So I said no at the altar. I decided not to get married to my fiance on the show, and it was a tough decision, but ultimately it was the best and healthiest decision for me. Yeah,
I think I'm not trying to. I feel like I'm reading Brian. Brian's spiraling. I think this is hitting really close to home. Like, Brian's like, I gotta like put up stronger boundaries. I have to say, Natalie, I in the beginning, I said that your relationship was so authentic, and also Shane was extremely authentic on the show. But I have to say, I think that after this conversation, I'm realizing just how authentic it was, and I'm just like, I guess before talking to you, I didn't realize that I was in my head, I was like, oh, here's this person that was on a TV show. But now I'm like, here's this person that really actually did get engaged and almost married somebody that she met in front of a live, not live, but in front of an audience. And that's I think it's really hitting me. You had a real full blown authentic relationship with somebody in front of people. And just from hearing you talk about it, it's just wow, that's so, it's really interesting. For some reason, I didn't fully understand that, I think, until I started talking to you.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for most people to understand because it is a TV show. It's, ultimately for people's entertainment, but it really was our real lives. It was my real feelings, my real relationship, and, everything that happened on the show, there was impact to who I was, and to my family and friends, to Shane, his family and friends. So it's definitely more than that. And I hope people see that. I know it's hard to, but it really was, a really changing moment for not only me, but for most of us on the show.
Well, I'm also so proud of you that you did stand up for, what you said, how you said it, choosing yourself. Also, I think you said something very important that I just want to emphasize. You said, I chose myself even though I knew other people would be disappointed, which is for Asians, that's so hard. I think I'm never mind. Okay, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I don't want to disappoint anyone. But yeah, that's really difficult.
Yeah. I couldn't have done it without my parents and my sister. They didn't push me one way or the other. They kind of sat, listened to me, and supported me throughout this entire journey, but especially on my wedding day. And, one of the things my dad said to me too is he's like, you don't need a man, marriage, or relationship to make yourself happy or make us happy. Just as long as you're happy and you create your own happiness, that's enough for us and yourself. So that was just that, I really need to hear that for me to be okay, I have to make the best decision for myself, and it's to say no.
Aww.
Oh, what a great message.
That's such a great message, and so sweet.
I did see your dad talking to you, and I saw and I remember the voiceover, you were saying something oh, I feel so solid or something because of my dad. And I remember seeing you two talking to each other, and I was like, yeah, dad support. Korean dad support.
Yeah. No, there's nothing I feel Korean dad love, where they're just always there for their daughters. And yeah, it was really important that he was there on my wedding day, because I think it validated, okay, I'm making the right decision. I feel so safe and secure with my dad. I'm not feeling that way with Shane. I know what I have to do.
Gosh, what a difficult decision. And I guess now, after having this whirlwind experience of Love is Blind, and in the aftermath of it, focusing on yourself, I guess as a as a final message to our listeners, how I guess what would you like to practice going forward when it comes to your relationship with love, and for our listeners who are looking for love, like do you have any I don't know, I guess words or experiences or insights that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll share the things that I learned from this experience. I mean, always choose yourself. You know, do what makes you happy. Find someone who makes you happy. Be in a relationship that makes you happy. So I think that's really, really important. And I think it's never compromising your boundaries and limits. You know, you will find a relationship where you don't have to do that. And it'll be the healthiest one for you. And that's what I've taken away from this. And just be vulnerable and authentic, and you'll, someone will fall in love with, you know, who you fully and fully are. And, you know, I really hope that people find that, and I hope I find it.
Oh, I'm sure you will. That reminds me of something my therapist said once about like being authentically yourself. So I forgot what she said, but she was like, well, if you're like acting in a way to like, because I'm kind of like a people pleaser, like I'm trying to work away from that. If I'm acting in a way to like please this person, and it's kind of like a front, you know, it's not truly authentic, then like that person's gonna fall in love with somebody that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Because that's like not really who I am. So the more real I am, that person's gonna, whoever falls in love with me is gonna truly see that person and fall in love. You know what I mean? Like, and that's who they're gonna fall in love with, not like a weird front. Yeah. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Natalie, and thank you so much for joining us. This was such a great discussion.
And
no, thank you so much. Go ahead, Brian.
No, well, you know, I just want to echo what Youngmi said. Thank you so much. And one last final question, and that is, you know, if like you said, you're working on yourself right now, but if and when you are ready to put yourself out there, are the DMs open for our listeners?
Yes, slide into my DMs.
Nice.
Whether you're looking for a relationship or a friendship or, you know, a shot at love, you know, my DMs are open. So.
And where can our listeners find you online?
Okay, so my Instagram handle is Natalie Lee. And so you can find me there. Definitely send me a message. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Well, thank you again. Sorry, thank you again for joining our podcast, and we had such a great conversation, and we love it.
Thank you for having me. I really, really loved this conversation with both of you, and I hope that you guys have me on again. This was really great.
Oh, we would love to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Youngmi, where can our listeners find you?
YM Mayer on social media, and then Youngmi Mayer on TikTok. How about you, Brian?
Y'all can find me on socials at It's Brian Park, and follow our podcast on socials at Feeling Asian Podcast. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the platforms that Natalie is actively trying to avoid with a fervor. Find us there. And yeah, thank you. If you listened this far, thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. And we hope to see you again here next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.